So hi everybody, my name is Flora Solomon and welcome to By The Book. It's an interactive webinar brought to you by our co-hosts, cousins Peter, John, and Danny Bookvar. Peter is a CNBC contributor and CIO of Bleakley Advisory Group, and John is Vice Chair of Neurosurgery at Lenox Hill Hospital, where he's also an investigator at the Feinstein Institute for Medical Research, where he directs the lab for brain tumor biology and therapy. Danny, John's twin, is president at Thrasio, the largest acquirer of Amazon third-party private label businesses, and has 20 plus years of experience leading fast-growing consumer businesses for global brands, such as the NFL and Weight Watchers. Peter, John, and Danny are all leaders in their respective fields, and we'll be catching up with best-selling authors and our special guests today, Catherine Pearlman, Jeff Pearlman, and Susie Orman Schnall. Please feel free to check out our previous episodes on our YouTube channel, and make sure to watch Netflix's original docuseries, Lenox Hill, starring our very own John Bookvar if you haven't already. All right, without further ado, take it away.
Thank you, Flora. I'm Peter Bookvar. Just a quick disclosure before we begin. John and Dan are not affiliated with Private Advisory Group and Bleakley Advisory Group, and nothing they say should be taken as investment advice, and nothing I say should be taken as medical advice. Annie, on to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danny Bookvar. Thank you, Flora, for that kind introduction. Yes, I'm president of Thrasio, former CEO of Circle Line Sightseeing, but my claim to fame is I met Susie at the University of Pennsylvania and Kathy at Hewlett High School, Catherine, sorry, at Hewlett High School. And I live on the Upper West Side with my wife of 23 years and two teenagers, one of whom is going to college next week. Johnny, over to you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Flora. I'm John Bookvar. I'm Vice Chair of Neurosurgery here at Lenox Hill Hospital on 77th and Lexington. As I do on every episode, we'd like to give an update on COVID-19 here in New York City. Fortunately, as many of you know, we have essentially very, very, very low numbers, 0 to 1 cases per day in our hospital, about a couple hundred, up to 700 statewide, which is just terrific. So as I think Monday, we're opening some of the gymnasiums to 30% vacancies and even some of the museums and whatnot. So we've made tremendous strides. I'd like to believe there are two main things that New York City has done, which can be a model for other states across the country. One is almost everybody's wearing masks. I take the subway from Harlem every day. I take Metro North and then subway from Harlem. About 98% of people on the subways are wearing masks, which is great. And of course, banning indoor dining, bars and nightclubs is really a key to prevent transmission. So those two things have really helped, and hopefully we'll see a good fall when this show returns for next season.
John, I have a quick follow-up before we go. So fast forward to the winter, is all the indoor stuff going to be, how are the restaurants, they're not going to just open, they're just going to be delivery and pickup?
It's going to be very challenging. It really depends upon how fast, the fall is going to be very important, meaning September and October, what the numbers look like here in New York. I think if they open at all indoor dining, first of all, bars and nightclubs, unfortunately, are going to have to remain closed, in my opinion, for the near future until probably herd immunity. But it really depends upon the numbers, Pete, that we see in the next couple of months. As we all move indoors because of the weather, it's going to be problematic, but we're going to have to keep our vacancies very low if we do go indoors, Peter, or else we're going to have trouble. Of course, we're going to have shielding and mask wearing and whatnot, but the vacancies of these restaurants are going to have to remain very low.
All right, so before we kick off, I want to do some introductions. I know Catherine, Jeff is trying to get in, so we'll give him time while I introduce you and Susie. So Dr. Catherine Pearlman, or Catherine Guggenheimer Pearlman, as we know you, you're a licensed clinical social worker, founder of The Family Coach, and an associate professor at Brandman University. You're the author of Ignore It: How Selectively Looking the Other Way Can Decrease Behavioral Issues and Increase Parent Satisfaction. And we are very excited to talk about that in the world of quarantine. You live in LA, right? California?
Southern California, our south.
SoCal. And your husband just joined. Hey, Jeff. And you have two teens. I know Casey. Who's the other one?
Emmett. He's a 9th grader.
Okay, awesome. Hey, Jeff. Nice to see you.
Howdy. Sorry about that.
Howdy. Everybody meet Jeff. Jeff, meet everyone. In addition to being the husband of Catherine, you are the author of 8 books. I believe your 9th, The 3-Ring Circus, is about to come out. And that one's about Shaq and Kobe and the Lakers dynasty. Comes out, what, next month?
September 22nd. So
so next month, and unbelievably timed. I'm sure we'll read quite a bit about that. You also wrote Football for a Buck about the USFL, which I haven't read, but I'm dying to read. And obviously I know it talks a lot about our president in there. So that is fascinating. Spent several months on the New York Times bestseller list. And I know you've written a lot about baseball and football and basketball as well. And also host a weekly podcast, I think, which is, what's the name of that? What is the name?
It's called Two Writers Slinging Yang. It's a writing podcast.
Two Writers Slinging Yang. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining. And last but definitely not least, Susie Orman Schnall, welcome. And also a novelist, if everybody who's listening hasn't gotten the theme yet. 4 novels, We Came Here to Shine, The Subway Girls, The Balance Project, and On Grace. On Grace was the first one? Right. And also grew up in LA and graduated with Johnny and myself from the University of Pennsylvania. You've written in the New York Times, HuffPo, Pop Sugar, etc. You live in New York in Westchester and have 3 sons. And like many of us on the phone, one is in college, Jason's at Duke, and I think Will and Judd are still home with you. But all of us are curious to hear Johnny's advice about what our freshmen and sophomores in colleges are about to experience. So we'll talk about that again. So welcome, Catherine, Susie, Jeff, awesome to have you. I think we'll go in order of how we met you, and Catherine, you're first. Okay. So no pressure, but I'll jump right to it. You know, I was following you on Facebook about a month ago, and you posted something about Kristen Bell following and reading Ignore It. So can you share what Ignore It is all about, and why was Kristen Bell so excited about it?
Yes, so I'm a family coach, and I like to help people with parenting problems. So I've been going into homes for like 10 years, and the book kind of came out of my practice, and I felt like I was always saying to every parent, no matter why they called me, ignore it. And so it's really just a behavior modification strategy to not encourage unpleasant behaviors by, you know, giving them extra attention and rewarding them. So I teach parents to ignore it, and kids realize, like, what's the point of tantruming, or what's the point of cursing at my parents if I still don't get to do what I want? And it kind of goes away. So that's where Ignore It came from. And Kristen Bell, I mean, since Susie probably goes through this, as I know Jeff does, you know, you write a book, you want someone to read it, you know, a year goes by, and, you know, is anybody still reading it? Like last week, I think I, you know, was checking my number to sign. I was like, I just still want people to read my book. So I sent Kristen Bell a book, and at the beginning of quarantine, forgot all about it. And then the next thing I know, she's talking about it on the Today Show and how great it is. And I just was like, wow, that's pretty great. Now who can I send it to?
It was great. It was very inspiring.
Thanks.
But Catherine, does the pandemic now just open up a whole new set of ideas of how to coach and how to deal with family issues and kids at home for schooling and interacting with their parents, and the parents are a friend, a parent, a teacher, and juggling all these different things?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, parents are suffering. You know, like the thrill of we can do anything for a few months is gone. Going back to school is kind of hard. And so I have gotten a lot of calls and have been on, you know, a lot of webinars trying to help parents like just kind of manage all the jobs that they have to do right now, and their emotions and their kids' emotions and school. It's a lot.
And it would seem that kids, depending on the age, like K through 5, if they have to learn from home, that's quite different than a 10th grader learning from home. And that kid needs a lot more attention. How do you manage that and coach that situation for a parent?
I mean, honestly, every kid and every school is different. And so parents have to really find a way to work with their school in a way that works for their kids. So, you know, for some kids sitting all day, you know, in 4th grade in front of the computer, it sounds great. You know, they're happy to sit around. And for other kids, that's torture. They can't do it. And so I really encourage parents to, you know, understand what your kids need and to really communicate with the school to find some solutions. And also scheduling, like kids really need a schedule of what's going to happen when, when they're going to have a break, what they can do during their break, what's going to be lunch, when is it going to be, that kind of schedule and knowing what's coming when can really help them focus in those short periods of time when they really do need to be online, with their elementary school.
Catherine, in your children's school districts, have they reached out to you to help with come back to school planning and how to handle these issues? Have you played a part in that?
I have not played a part. So we have a district of 50,000 students. It's really big. And we went back to school 2 days ago or 3 days ago. So we're kind of getting an early preview of the struggle, because our kids had school until March. They knew their teachers, they knew their friends, they knew the classes, and they were really almost winding down. But to start a brand new school year, 9th and 12th grade, you don't know the teachers, you don't know any of the students, you don't know the work, you don't remember anything from last year. It's a lot, so now I'm starting to think about writing about, how parents can do reentry and, keep their sanity and their kids together, because it's a lot.
And how often are they in school? Are they in school every day?
No, so our kids are all remote.
Your kids are all
The
remote.
high school,
Yeah.
the high school kids are remote.
What about
For
the
us,
young kids?
everybody's remote right now.
Everybody.
Oh, even elementary school kids?
Yeah.
Wow.
Kathy, can you give me an example in the book of something I should ignore when my kids are acting up?
Yeah. So for teenagers, it's all the disrespectful talk. It's anything that happens after you say no. So can I stay out later? Can I go to my friends? Can I watch one more show? Anything that happens after you say no, they're just trying to get a rise out of you. And then you give it to them and it's like, okay, well, if I can't have what I want, at least you're also mad. Great. So, they slam doors, they curse at you. I have a pretty high tolerance for that stuff because it doesn't matter. And anything you do will just reinforce it and show your kid, wow, that really was very effective. I should do that more often. So a lot of like complaining, whining, if you have a whiner or complainer, it's just, you can't help but want to get it to stop. The quickest way to get it to stop is to just ignore it. But as soon as the kid stops with whatever that behavior is, you get back in. Like, we're not really ignoring our kids. We're listening. And then when they stop, we.
So if my kid leaves his dirty laundry on the floor, I shouldn't ignore it, right?
You should not ignore it. No. You have permission to
Hypothetically.
not ignore and
I'm
enforce
not
consequences.
saying which one does that, but if you're listening, I think you know who you are.
Consequences.
By the way, Susie, you feel free to ask questions, and Jeff, of course.
Wait, Catherine, did you write the book Ignore It before or after you had kids?
After.
Okay, so you've had some sort of trial by error yourself and practice.
Totally. And it's funny because my son has read the book twice and he's got it down. So even if I happen to forget my own advice and I'm going back and forth with my daughter, he'll yell from the other room, ignore it. And I'm like, he's totally right. What am I doing? I already said no, ignore it.
Jeff, do you find that Catherine practices ignore it in your marriage also? Is it?
I should do it.
Sometimes. I mean, it's an effective
Tool.
We always say one thing we've learned through marriage is the worst advice people give about marriage is never go to sleep angry. Like, a lot of times the best thing to do is to go to sleep angry instead of hashing it out till 4 a.m. And in a way, that's a form of ignoring it. Like, sometimes you just got to let stuff go and move on. So
Yeah.
I would say there are elements of it that definitely apply to the marriage life.
That's good. Hey, Catherine, can you just tell the audience about?
I love that you call her Kathy.
I know. I'm sorry. It's gonna.
No. It's awesome.
Tell the audience about your kidney.
Oh, yeah. So I'm an organ donor, which is pretty great. I saw a flyer in Starbucks of a local man who needed a kidney, and said he was looking for O positive, and I'm O positive, and it all just worked out. So last year, this time, I donated my kidney. I'm feeling great. He's doing great. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's so inspiring what you did, and truly just an unbelievable act of kindness and generosity. So I haven't had the chance to tell you that personally, but it was incredibly moving. So I hope you're healthy and he's healthy.
Yeah, he's doing great. We've gotten to know each other. They're awesome people. And, I just learned so much through the experience. I feel like I personally got a lot back from it. And it was just great all around, so it's good to know that he's doing well. And, you know, we're connected in this weird way because we're not family, but we're definitely more than friends because he has my organ. Like, it's just an unusual relationship.
I will tell you that the techniques for harvesting a kidney are pretty minimally invasive now. So it's really one of the technological advances that has made, obviously kidneys being one of the most important organs, if not the most important organ to donate. So congratulations, Catherine, and really terrific stuff. Amazing.
And also, I just want to say, in a way, I'm better off now because if I ever need a kidney, I go to the top of the list. So it's like, it's all good.
Oh.
That's
That's what I
great.
told my mother anyway.
Yeah.
She believe you?
That's great.
Was that when she asked you, why are you doing this?
Yeah, it was a rough go in the beginning, but she came around. She was just nervous. I mean, it's understandable.
Rightfully so.
Well,
All right. So what's it like living with an author?
It's very funny, actually. I don't know. It'd be interesting if Susie kind of goes through the same cycle that Jeff does, but there's like a definite like roller coaster wave of like, this book is going to be great. I'm feeling so pumped. And then it's not going to work out and he's not going to write it in time. He's not getting the stuff. And then the nerves before it comes out, and then it comes out and it's exciting. And then it's over. It's like this very predictable kind of thing. And now I just sit back. This is probably where ignore it comes in. Like I just let it unfold in front of me. And I know the next phase will kind of move along.
Do you help each other?
Yeah.
Do you help each other with writer's block ever? Like, I just can't get to the next paragraph. Give me an idea.
He's the expert. I'm the newbie.
Not that much. Not that much. We read each other's stuff, though. I mean, I thought when you were asking what's it like to live with an author, you were asking me. We read, you know, we read each other's stuff. She's read every book I've written. She, you know, is really good with the pen and going through everything and sort of the details. And so it's really helpful.
did you guys study journalism in college, or you just liked the topics that you wrote about and just started writing?
Catherine, did you study journalism in college?
No, but that question just made me so happy. So I'm a social worker who's like turned writer, and it's great living with your writing coach because, I mean, in the beginning he ripped me to shreds, but I learned so much as I've gone. So I'm learning as I go, but he's the expert.
Yeah. I was a history major at the University of Delaware, but I worked for the student newspaper, you know, and that became almost my fraternity, where you were up there 70 hours a week. So that was sort of I always knew I wanted to be a writer, so it started at a young age.
My wife went there, Delaware.
She's a blue hen.
Yep.
And Susie, you graduated, went right into writing. What, Golf Digest? Was that your first
No,
gig?
I actually went into marketing and communications, and I worked for nonprofit organizations and internet companies and magazines, working in the marketing side. So I worked for Golf for Women was one of my jobs for a few years, but more on the marketing and promotions end.
Oh, so you didn't write until you just sat down and wrote? Huh.
Well, I would say that, you know, I've always written, and all of my jobs required writing, although it was corporate writing. But then when I left the corporate world and decided to raise my children, that's when I started writing more freelance pieces, and that's what led into writing novels.
And so On Grace, when was that published?
It was published in 2013, and then The Balance Project in 2014, 2015, and then The Subway Girls in 2018, and this one, We Came Here to Shine, just came out. Sorry, my screen is backward. This one came out in June.
So just to be clear, you just launched a new book during the quarantine. How did that go?
Well, it was interesting, and I will say that there are some advantages to it. And Jeff, I'm curious to see how you're approaching this. You clearly, obviously, cannot go on standard book tour, but that being said, the ability to do book tour and to do book events on Zoom with the standard libraries and organizations and bookstores made the audience that much larger. And so, you know, it wasn't just if you do a book event in Delaware for Bethany Beach Books that you're just getting the 30 to 50 to 75 people who are coming out. You're getting the entire, United States, and then they're repeating it because it's recorded. So you're getting everybody on Facebook. So I think that it was definitely a positive, a silver lining. I can't imagine that we're going to go back to just doing bookstore events with just the audience who shows up. I have a feeling that everything's going to be live streamed as well from now on, and then live on in perpetuity through recordings.
I can't lie that it's been a long time since I've been in a bookstore. Peter, are there actually bookstore companies anymore that like are traded on the exchange?
Well, it's interesting. You like take Barnes and Noble, for example, and it's been repurposed many times. They added a little cafe inside to get people to come and hang out, but people still like going to bookstores. They still like holding actual books, and a lot of vintage type bookstores have made it through. So I think the Kindle thing worked for maybe a little while, and some people like that, but I still think that people like going to a bookstore. They like browsing. They like holding the physical in their hand, and I don't think it's something that's going to go away.
Also, a lot of people, just to jump in, are buying their books at Costco, Walmart, and Target, and that's those are important buys if you're an author, to have those stores buy your book.
So,
sorry, I just want to finish answering the other question. I think that the pandemic for book marketing has really proven that social media is important and is required in a way. Luckily, I have a marketing background, and that medium doesn't scare me. I feel badly for the authors who just, A, are shy and don't want to put themselves out there, and B, don't have the skills nor want to gain the skills in order to utilize those channels. But it really is important, and it's a way to connect directly with the readers.
And so give us an example of how you use social media in that way.
Well, there's something called the Bookstagrammer community, and especially in my genre, and I'm curious, Jeff, of yours, and Catherine, obviously yours as well, but these are influencers in the book world. And so for historical fiction, which I write, there are people who spend inordinate amount of time posing photos with books, and they have followers who trust their book recommendations. And so I work with a publicist who gets my book into the hands of those bookstagrammers, and it's just a cycle from there.
I want to say that I totally agree with you. And I had given my book to a bookstagrammer at a conference. She didn't read it for a year. And then a year after my book comes out, I just see it doing really well on Amazon. I'm like, that's so weird. That's so weird. She read it. She liked it. She just kept talking about it on her stories, how much it helped her kids, how much they're getting to sleep, how much it changed the dynamic. That was it. I didn't have to pay for it. I just gave her a book, and it literally, she sold more books in 1 week than I sold probably my whole first year.
Wow.
What's her name? Just kidding.
I'll send it to you. Everyday reading. She's a librarian.
Hey, Jeff, before we come over to you, because we want to hear about your launch plans, Susie, We Came Here to Shine is the one about the World's Fair?
Yes, the 1939 New York World's Fair.
And Subway Girls is about?
The Miss Subway's advertising program, which was part of the subway system from 1941 to 1976.
All right, so just double click for us on both of those for a second. What were those historical events?
So the Miss Subways contest was basically a beauty contest that took place with the winners' pictures and several lines of pithy copy about them getting posted in the subway system for millions of eyeballs to see. There was, from 1941 to 1976, there were about 200 winners, approximately one winner a month. Sometimes they were longer if there was a transit strike or what have you. But I found out about that contest listening to an NPR story and was fascinated by it, and decided to write a novel about it that focuses on two young women competing for Miss Subways in 1949, with a dual storyline, alternate chapters, with a modern day advertising executive who finds out about the contest as she's pitching the MTA account, and the two storylines end up intersecting. And then We Came Here to Shine is set at the 1939 World's Fair, which was in Flushing Meadows, Corona, Queens. And that's my story for that is two young women, one a swimmer in the Aquacade, which was the big synchronized swimming spectacular. She's a Hollywood actress. She's swimming this Aquacade. I also have a young woman who's a journalist working at the fair's daily paper. Their two storylines intersect. They become friends and find their way to pursue their personal and professional dreams. And the third character is really the fair itself, because it's just fascinating and colorful and rich history. Sorry, Peter.
Now, I'm just curious, like, so do you wake up and say, you know what, I want to write a book, and then search out a topic, or you just learn about a topic and say, I got to write about this?
The latter. The first.
And Susie, I heard you on a podcast where you explain the way you research and the interesting, like, crazy detail that you have to personally go in to get every, detail about the World's Fair, each pavilion. Tell us about that.
Well, I want to make sure that the story is authentic and that nothing can be contradicted. And obviously, I'm not going to get 100% of the things right, but I will try my darndest to do so. Because as Jeff, I'm sure knows, you will get letters from people who say, well, the Perisphere was 200 feet wide, not 210 feet wide. So I wanted to be as authentic as possible in order to make the reading experience for the reader as pleasurable and interesting as possible, because they didn't have to be distracted by questioning what was real and what was not. And I do have an extensive historical note at the end of the book. But yeah, I read books, I watch videos, I go on the New York Times machine, which is their archive of articles back into the 1800s. I talk to people, and the most exciting part of my research for this book was actually going to Flushing Meadows Corona Park in Queens and having a tour of the fairground site, because obviously nothing is left from the 3940 fair, but the footprint is exactly the same.
So what's the big globe that sits on that site now?
That is the Unisphere, and that's from the 64-65 fair. So all the remnants that you see today are from 64-65.
Same park.
Same exact park, same exact footprint.
Fascinating.
So do you have the idea for the next one?
I have a lot of ideas, but I'm giving myself till the first day of school, and then I'm going to sit down with them all and decide which one I'm going to move forward with.
Before we move on to
Are you
Jeff,
aware of newspapers.com?
Yes, I am.
You have a subscription?
I used to. I don't anymore, but yeah.
Greatest thing ever.
Yeah, you know what was lucky is because my book was set in New York City, really the Times archive, the Times machine was helpful enough, but yes.
Johnny, you're going to ask a question?
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about work-life balance because of your book as well. And how are you counseling? I know Catherine talked about her COVID transitions as a family coach and as a career counselor, if you will, from your book. How do you counsel now people working from home and potentially never going back to the office, at least in Manhattan?
So
are you coming out with a post-COVID rendition of Balance?
Balance Project. So in 2014, I started an interview series called The Balance Project, and it ran for a few years, and I interviewed 175 women from all different walks of life and all different professions about work-life balance, because I personally was struggling with it. And I had tried to find out what the secret was. How can I be the type of mother that felt right for me while also being the type of professional that served me? And so I started just asking women. And what I found out was nobody's doing it all. And when you even try to, you're setting yourself up for failure. Since I started, and that inspired my novel, The Balance Project, which is the same name, but it's fiction, whereas the interview series was nonfiction. But the whole conversation about work-life balance has changed so dramatically since I started that in 2014 and since that novel came out in 2015. And so it's almost a little bit irrelevant, but I think some things hold true, which is the things that you hear all the time, which is, redefine your relationship with perfectionism, stop glorifying busy, really play your own game and stay in your own lane, and don't compare yourself to people who have very different life experiences and perspectives and constitutions. Like I can look at Sheryl Sandberg and say, wow, I want to accomplish everything she does, but she probably doesn't get as overwhelmed as I do. And she probably ignores it better than I do, what have you. So I think there's so many things, ways to be efficient, but I think during the pandemic, you almost have to, I always like to say that you have to look at your work-life balance in terms of seasons. So for an accountant, you wouldn't expect them to be balanced in April or May, right? So during the pandemic, you have to change the way that you even approach or understand work-life balance and realize that things are going to be a little hairy for a while. And you can do certain things like try to be efficient and try to take on practices that will make things a little bit more manageable and not put too much on your plate and practice self-care, all the things we hear over and over and over again. But it's gonna be hard, and we just have to accept that and embrace that.
Hey, Kathy, what do you have to say about that?
I agree with everything. I think that my mom always says that, you know, like her generation fought so that women could have choices, and our generation feels like we have to do it all. So we have to work full time, and I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom at the same time. And it just is too much, and I have changed. So everything that Susie was saying, I think is very true. And now in the pandemic, even more so, I'm hoping this ends up making a big change for women, where we're prioritizing and realizing like what's just not that important. Like if my kids have hot dogs 5 days a week, like they're going to be okay. You know, like if we watch more TV than we're supposed to, that's going to be fine. You know, just to really see what the most important thing is and focus on that and stop trying to do everything. And I always say, keep your eyes on your own paper. That's it. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing.
She's just saying that because her kids have had hot dogs 5 days a week.
Nothing wrong with that. I just want to add to that also, qualifying and saying that I'm coming from a place where I don't have little kids at home. I don't have babies. That's completely different. I don't have, you know, a job that requires me to be a functioning full-time on a computer while I have kids running around, and I have my health and somewhere to live. So I think that, you know, it's easy for me to say what I just said, but clearly people are dealing with a lot of different things.
So politicians are talking about in this upcoming election, the rage mom, not the soccer mom, not the security mom. The mom of 2020 is the rage mom. Any comments?
I mean, I think below rage is depression. I mean, I think that's the underside of we just can't take it anymore, and it's showing. It's and more publicly than usual. And I hope it leads to dialogue and change, you know, but I certainly understand the rage. And I think just as a therapist, behind the rage is a lot of sadness and feeling like you're out of control. And that's really hard.
All right, shifting gears for a second. I think we're out of historical fiction and into nonfiction, Jeff, with Football for a Buck. But if you say it was historical fiction, we would probably believe you. But tell us about that book, and then the one that you're about to launch in September.
Yeah, well, it was a book about, there was a football league called the United States Football League that came along in the early to mid 80s as a rival to the NFL. And I wanted to write that book for years and years and years and years. When I was growing up, when I was a senior in high school, for my my English class, you had to write a 20-page final paper on the subject of your choice. And I wrote 40 pages on the downfall of the USFL. I always just loved the USFL. So years later, I wanted to write this book. My agent, nobody wants an effing USFL book, over and over. Nobody wants a USFL book. You're not going to get it. So I basically got the deal I wrote Brett Favre's biography, a biography of Brett Favre. And I told the publisher, I'll do Favre if you let me write the USFL. So I had a really short amount of time. I had 1 year to report and write it. Just by timing alone, I was working on it while Donald Trump was running for president.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump actually ruined the USFL. Just decimated the league out of greed and selfishness, and not surprising. And so it was really weird. It was really strange. It was this parallel sort of universe going on where he's running for president and he's saying all these things, and they're basically the exact same things he said in 1983, 84, and 85. Exactly the same things, just in a different context. So it was a really weird and bizarre experience. And I was yelling at people during the time. I mean, I don't know your guys' politics, but I was yelling at the time. I was like, you do not want this guy as president. You don't want this guy as president. And I had many people say to me, I should have read
Which team did he own again? The Generals?
So he owned the New Jersey Generals. And the two most famous players on the team were Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie. And my favorite thing about, so Doug Flutie was the Heisman Trophy winner at Boston College. And he was not going to be a high NFL draft pick. He was only 5'9". It was at a time when mobile, small quarterbacks were not a thing. And Trump knew nothing about football, but he desperately wanted Doug Flutie. So he signed him to the biggest contract in the history of pro football at that time. Like, this is a guy nobody wanted. He would have been a third round, fourth round NFL pick. Signs the biggest contract in football history. Tells his cohorts with the New Jersey Generals, don't worry, it's all going to work out. It's going to be great. The other owners are going to help pay for his contract. And he sends a letter that I have to the other owners and to the commissioner of the league saying, I'm signing Doug Flutie, and this is a boom for the league, and I expect all of you to pay for the contract. And I would say, Catherine will tell you this, I was like, this was the freaking Mexico Wall 30 years before the exact same. And I was yelling at people. I was on MSNBC on Morning Joe yelling about how this was a Mexico Wall before it was a Mexico Wall. It's just, the level of the insanity is just.
So Jeff, is that how he wrecked the league? Is he essentially, he pressured all these other teams to spend a lot of money for these players that for some reason didn't want to play with the NFL, and essentially bankrupted every team because of their bloated payrolls?
Yeah, sort of. So he basically wanted to be an NFL owner because at the time the NFL was really an old money league, like the Maras and the Rooneys and these old families. And he wanted in. He tried buying the Baltimore Colts, and they would not sell to him. So he had this plan. I'm gonna get into this league and force our way into the NFL. And he actually had in 1983, shortly after he got the Generals, he had a secret meeting at the Pierre Hotel with Pete Rozelle, the commissioner of the NFL, and told him, I'm paraphrasing, but told him, I don't care about the USFL. You tell me what I have to do to get in the NFL. If I have to undermine this league, I'll undermine this league. I don't care. Whatever I need to do, just tell me. And Pete Rozelle said to him, as long as I'm involved in the NFL, as long as my heirs are involved in the NFL, you will have nothing to do with this league. And Trump spent the rest of his time as USFL owner trying to force them, they were a spring league, trying to force them to move to fall to take on the NFL directly. He led a lawsuit against the NFL, and ultimately the USFL sued the NFL in an antitrust suit and famously won $3. And that was the death of the NFL, of the USFL.
Of the USFL. What year was that? 85?
The suit was in 86. It was filed in 85. It came across in 86.
You seem to have uncanny good timing. In your next book, Three Ring Circus, is about Kobe and Shaq and the Lakers. So how did that come about? And unfortunately, unbelievable timing again.
Yeah, so in a way, I don't know if I say this is good timing because so the book was finished, and I was actually sitting in a corner bakery in Irvine, California, and a friend of ours named Amy Bass texted me, and she wrote something like, rumors Kobe died in plane crash. And I was like, wait, what? I mean, I spent 2 years working on this book and living Shaq, Kobe, Lakers and that whole thing. And I don't know, the book comes out in a month. It's not easy on Kobe. Like, that's a big thing. It's not easy on Kobe. He was a complex figure. And between the years I wrote about, which are 96 to 04, a big chunk of that time was a alleged rape in Eagle, Colorado, that he almost went to jail for. So it's going to be weird and uncomfortable having a book come out, and people still very raw, understandably, under the emotions of Kobe's death. So I'm walking a little nervously with this one.
Did you ever talk to him during the writing process?
So early on, I was told I got Shaq, I got Phil, I got most of the Lakers. Early on, I was told Kobe wouldn't talk. And I just think, honestly, a big part of it, the Eagle, Colorado sexual assault was a huge, huge thing that kind of hung over him. And the era I was writing about was plop in the middle of that. And I just think his camp was always, since it happened, very nervous about the perceptions and how that would come out. So sadly, I did not get to speak to him. A lot of people around him, a lot of old coaches, but not him.
How did you pick that era?
You know, I wrote a book called Showtime about the Magic Johnson Lakers and the Kareem Lakers. And it ended with Magic's HIV announcement in 1991. It was a really fun book to write. It kind of was one of the reasons we ended up moving out to California. And I just thought there was this thing hanging there, like this, it ended so abruptly. Magic announces he's done. And I just thought there was this next stage with really big dynamic characters and a really fascinating run of itself. So it just felt kind of natural to do.
Can I ask you your interpretation of the Last Dance documentary? Just curious how the representation of the 93, Bulls and their two three-peats, and if that was done with the Lakers, just some comparisons, some thoughts.
Did you like it?
I did like it, but it's funny how it did change my perceptions of some of the players in some ways, but it was.
Yeah, I didn't particularly like Michael, but I liked the Last Dance. I found him unlikable.
Well, the funny thing is, so I was at Sports Illustrated when Jordan was in his prime at the Bulls, when they were having their second run, so maybe slightly after prime, but still a great player. And the big secret was what a jerk he was and what a pain in the ass he was and just a difficult guy. And Teammates hated him. And, you know, he was involved with the 10-part series. So he had a hand in it. So it wasn't going to go super, super hard on him. But what I thought it did really well, I was really into it. At one point, I got really emotional watching it, which is kind of weird. I was by myself one night. It just reminded me how great he was. How, like, I know he was a jerk, but how ridiculously great he was. And it's easy to forget with Kobe coming along, then with LeBron coming along, and oh, LeBron's better than Jordan. And you watched him and those videos, that team was, it was just preposterously good and well-oiled. And the way Phil Jackson handled Dennis Rodman, I thought was a masterclass. And so I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
What I was amazed with Michael is how he was able to keep up a level of intensity while playing every single night of his entire career.
I was thinking I would never want to be him. Like,
you don't want to be like
so
Mike?
working the Shaq Kobe book, just as an example, Kobe had a better career than Shaq. I think there's not much of an argument. Kobe wound up having a better career. I would much rather have been Shaq. Much. He enjoyed it. He was in on the joke. He actually told me something that I really thought was funny. I was with Shaq. I went to Atlanta to see Shaq. It was one of my favorite moments. And Shaq had all these nicknames through the years. He would nickname himself as a joke, like the Big Aristotle, Superman, Shaq Diesel. And Kobe's nickname was the Black Mamba. But Kobe gave himself the nickname and used it as like a real thing. And I said to Shaq at the end of the interview, I was like, I always thought it was weird how Kobe gave himself this nickname and sort of took it so seriously. And Shaq goes to me in like that deep baritone. He goes, now you know what I've been dealing with, brother. Like, it just like, Kobe just, I don't think he enjoyed it. And Shaq just got a joy out of it. And I think the same with Jordan. I don't think he loved it.
Looked like Magic had a great time too.
Say that again?
Looked like Magic had a great time too. He always had a smile.
Magic was it. Magic had a great time. Shaq had a great time. I never thought that Michael Jordan or Kareem, guys like that, had great times doing it.
You've been writing your next book, or are you waiting for Three Ring Circus to come out?
I've started reporting it, but I'm always paranoid. I don't know how other people are about saying topics, so but I'm deep into the process, and and it's frustrating because I need to travel and I can't travel right now and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm deep into it.
Can you give us a hint on what sport?
Yeah, that'll give it away.
That's a tricky question. I can't. I'm so paranoid. I don't know why. It's like this Jewish guilt I was brought up with or something, paranoia. But it's a very, very famous athlete from the Jordan era. Catherine knows. I told her.
Yeah, he told me.
I was thinking Isaiah would be a good one to chronicle.
It's a funny thing, like finding the right.
Because he got torn apart. He got torn apart.
I don't know how many people buy an Isaiah Thomas book. That's the only thing. It's a pretty small market. He's fascinating.
Are you hinting that it's basketball topic?
Say that again?
Are you hinting that it's on basketball again?
No, it's not actually. That's a funny thing. It's not basketball. No.
Women's golf.
It's a women's golf book.
Big seller.
It is. It's a Nancy Lopez biography.
Have you started your next, or are you also just digesting the last one?
Yeah, waiting till September, and then I'll start.
Got it. And Kathy, any plans for Catherine? Any plans for another one? Ignore it.
I'm trying. I also am like Susie. I have a lot of ideas, but I'm not sure like what's my book. And with Ignore It, like it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like this was my book, and so I'm kind of not sure. And also, I don't have the headspace right now with the craziness that's 24 hours a day in my house with my kids and work and school to focus on it. But I have some things swirling around, so it'll come out when it's ready.
Jeff, I know you have a successful podcast. Catherine, Susie, are you also in that space? No, just writing.
Jeff and I had a brief podcast together called The Sports Parent, and actually it was pretty fun. We did it in our closet, but we didn't keep it up. Mostly I write just articles for Popular Press or Opinion or just stuff about parenting. And it's pretty satisfying because it's quick, so you write something and then you put it out in the world and it feels great and it's over. And then you can think about the next thing. So that's mostly what I've been doing.
Are any of your kids taking up being writers?
Don't know yet. Two of mine are really good writers, so we'll see, and have won, contests, but who knows what will happen.
I don't, why why give them the torture and the, I mean,
But
I love
Jeff, when you were in high school, you were writing, you know, passionately.
I was, but I didn't know. I mean,
Well, you said you were going to be a Sports Illustrated writer in like 7th grade, and then that's what you did. That's pretty
I did
unusual.
say that to my mom, but I, you know what happens is you get older, it's just torturous. I mean, it's torturous. And Catherine, she said it earlier, like everything I write, I think sucks. Then I think it's good. Then I think it sucks. Then one person on like Publishers Weekly will call it good. And you're like, oh, it must be good. You know, it's like, it's insanity. It doesn't make any sense. And you're always in your head. And Catherine knows, like right now I'm on this subject and all I want to do is talk about this subject. And all she doesn't want to hear is about this subject. So I'll be like, let me just tell you one more thing I learned today. And she's like, okay, I need my space. There's a pandemic. I need my space. And she's using the pandemic as an excuse not to hear stories.
Is Catherine even a sports fan?
Yeah.
I mean, I like to watch sports. I like to play sports, but I don't even care. But I like Jeff's books because they're really more like he digs in and it's really about people. So, you know, I end up enjoying them even though I don't actually care about the sports stuff.
Jeff, I think Susie would be a very good listener for you.
I'll take it.
Really into those historical.
And I live with 4 male sports fans. So it's pretty much all I do all day anyway.
Yeah.
So you're more than welcome to give me a call.
So Susie, every day.
Thank you.
I'll pretend
every day.
to you too.
Susie, are you okay if every day, like maybe, I don't know, 4 to 5, I'm going to hold everything in all day and I'm just going to tell you everything I learned that day.
Yeah, I'll put you on speakerphone and do my work.
By the way, that's Pacific time.
All right. Yeah, you're right.
Just want to make sure you understand the time zone.
He'll
And
tuck you
speaking
in
of
with
time,
bedtime stories.
right. I think we're going to wrap. We're probably up time, but really just wanted to thank you guys, Susie, Catherine, Jeff, for joining us today. What's our last episode of the season of By the Book, but thank you all for sharing your inspirations and what it's like parenting and writing during a pandemic. It's pretty unusual, but a great way to end. And Peter and Johnny will use this to wrap up our inaugural season of By the Book and look forward to seeing everybody again in the fall. So thank you very much and
It's fun.
take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.